All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the createTED podcast. And I'll say the same thing I say every single time. I'm super excited for today's guest. I have my friend Adriana Alba on with us, and I think you're really going to enjoy her story. And one thing I want to point out that's a little different is even though Adriana does write, she is a writer, she does that on the side, but this time we're going to focus a little bit on how she's been very strategic in creating the life that she wants for herself and for her family, and how that being deliberate and making those choices has kind of benefited her. So, Adriana, welcome. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Ted. It's really a pleasure. I
Yeah,
really admire what all your projects, all the things you work on, and you're my mentor, my friend. So it's really fun to be with you.
yeah, it is fun to have you on. So let's talk about. Well, I'll set a little bit of background, and then instead of doing a normal introduction where you get to tell about yourself, this whole episode is going to be about you. So you're going to get a chance to give everyone a chance to get to meet you. But I first met Adriana, let's see, wow. So I've been here at BYU for 4 years, probably 7 years, probably so,
2018,
yeah,
2000, yeah.
yeah, almost like roughly 7-ish years ago. I was working as a course designer up at BYU, Idaho, in Rexburg, Idaho, and I got put on working on the English Connect project. And I think Seth had hired you first
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
to be one of our part of the team that was helping write and review content that our authors were writing. And then Adriana helped with a team of other students get that put into our learning management system so students um, could then start doing these different practice activities and reading the different content to help them in their English language learning. And that's where we met, and we worked on that project for 3 years, and then she ended up sticking with me for a
Mhm.
little bit after that, working on other projects, and then that's kind of where it started. But um, there's I'm we'll leave it there. I'm gonna let you go back and help us understand how did you actually get to Rexburg? What brought you there?
Yeah, well, I went to Rexford last week, and every time just for we had some meetings there in my current job, but it's so fun to go there because I have all these memories, coming back to me and our life there, and it makes me kind of nostalgic. It's such a wonderful community. Okay, how we end up in Rexford? I have to go a little bit back, maybe 2 years back, because I started, as a student in Pathway Connect. I decided to go back to school after like a gap of 15 years, I
Hmm.
think. And so I decided to go back to school. And what was interesting is that in 2016, we brought our whole family to Disneyland, to California. And we decided to, since I was a student at Pathway and I was taking some classes there, and I actually finished Pathway Connect and I was doing my degree, my public health degree online. And so Santi, my husband, said, "Oh, why don't we go up to Rexburg and visit, BYUI and just you're a student there. So let's do the whole tour in the university." And at that point, we were not thinking about,
Ah,
living in the States at all. We were just on vacation, taking our kids to Disneyland. So we went there. And so we drove the whole way up to Rexburg and we just did the tour and the university.
wow.
And I remember, we went to to where we have devotionals.
Hmm.
I it skipped my mind the name, but we went to that building and we did the tour. And I remember, standing up there and thinking, oh, it would be so wonderful to be a student here. But, I was 41 years old. I was not, at the time of my stage of my life that I was planning to be a student anywhere. Well, so that was it. We just did the tour. I took a picture and we went back. And I fast forward a year, and then due to different, family decisions we had to take, we were like, again, we were having this conversation and with my husband, and he was like, why don't we go up there and you finish your bachelor's in person on campus?
Wow.
And we were, there were some issues going on in Argentina, in our country, there are some different things depending on the government in turn, and
Hmm.
there were some political and economical things going on. So we thought, well, yeah, let's go for a while. Let's take chance. My husband was okay with, taking like a break, and then he was able to build a company. And anyway, so he was okay taking a break. So we just decided we put the whole family together, and we thought, and we told our kids like, what do you think? Should we go there and, support mom finishing up her bachelor's? And they were excited. They were little, they were excited. So we packed like 7 suitcases. We left our apartment. We sold and gave away most of our things there. Yeah, just rented our apartment back in Argentina, and we just came here with, 7 suitcases. And it was a bit of a shock at the beginning because at that time, we were living in Buenos Aires, like huge city, millions of people, yeah, totally.
Rexburg's a little bit smaller.
Rexford is a little bit small, and but it forced us to rethink the kind of life we wanted to have.
Mm.
And while we just, yeah, it was magical. It was hard, but it was so good at the same time. And my kids they had to get used to having mom going out in the morning, and I was a stay-at-home mom, for a long time. So this was like a switch in our family dynamics because my kids had dad at home and mom
Yeah.
was out and mom was a student. And anyway, but lots of, adjustments, family adjustments, but an overall, amazing experience.
Yeah. A lot of times on the show, we'll talk about how sometimes the strategic decisions we make are small ones that have a huge impact. And sometimes, there were small decisions that you and Santi made, but Santi saying that's a pretty big strategic decision of, hey, let's change what we're doing.
Yeah.
Let's leave our home country. Let's go to a small town in southeastern Idaho
Yeah.
where it's, you know, total everything is different.
Yeah. And
Um,
I have to say, I have this small, when we first getting into, migration, I don't remember
yeah.
how to call it, but they would asking, why are you coming here? Well, I'm a student and whatever. And where are you going? Rexford, Idaho. And they were like, why? And we were like, well, there's a great university there, and I'm finishing my bachelor's, but their faces were like, why would you go to Rexford, Idaho? Well, it's a great place to
Yeah.
live.
And I don't know if you guys ever learned to love the snow and the cold, but um, give you a
Oh,
good opportunity to do that. So by the time when we first met, how long had you been in Rexburg?
we moved in January 2018.
Okay.
So I think we met, I don't remember
So you
exactly.
hadn't been there that long. Because I know, like, when I met your girls for the first time, they were so shy.
But they didn't speak the
Yeah.
language. It's not that they were
I know.
shy. They are not
Yeah.
shy at all, but they didn't
No.
speak language. They didn't know a
No.
word in English. And
Yeah.
even me, like I had studied English in the past but it's a total different thing to
Yeah.
be, So yeah, they couldn't say anything, poor
Yeah.
thing.
I remember and over the years watching them just dive right in and
Oh yeah,
embrace everything and learn and grow to where now you wouldn't be able to tell. I mean, they're flourishing
yeah,
now, the 7 years later. And so yeah,
yeah.
that was always fun to see. So now we've got up to, you're in Rexburg, you're working on these projects, you're studying public health. And I think now you're almost done. And there's a conversation we had one day, because with the students that I had working for me, I would always give them a chance. I would basically treat them like they were a designer just like me. I would give them the same kinds of projects. For those who were comfortable, some people just they would want to do just go in and adjust HTML or just do some things that were simpler, not the things more that I normally would do as part of my full-time job. But sometimes people wanted to, and you were one of the ones who wanted to. And so I started doing that. And I remember the day that you said, and I'm going to have you tell the whole story, but you basically told me, I think I want to go do this. I want to learn about instructional design. And for those who don't know what instructional design is, the way I explain it now is it's learning engineering. So everyone knows what engineers do, like computer engineer and electrical engineer. Well, instructional designers, we're learning engineers. We design learning experiences. But tell about that because that's another pivot that happened for you.
Yeah, and maybe sorry that I keep switching,
No,
going
you're
back and
good.
forth, going back and forth. But the thing is that the first big change that came into my mind was switching into public health, actually, because I
Mm,
had a background in education. I had taught for a while ESL, and I had taught literature for a while back at home. But then I had this huge gap. Then when I decided to go back to school, there were like five different programs
yeah.
that they were offered through BYU Pathway. And so I chose public health that had, a totally new
Mm,
field, and I really enjoyed the program. I loved it. But then when I was in Rexford and I started to work again, in the kind of academic, like, yeah, designing courses and going back into a little bit of education field, I thought, oh, this is my true passion. This is what
mm,
I really like. And then I learned what designers did and,
yeah.
creating all these experiences for learners and thinking, it's particular at BYU Idaho, where we created those programs that were going to be helping students, international students
Yeah.
there, and supporting them, and especially non-traditional students that
Mm,
like me. So I was like, oh, no, no, no. This is my first love. So I want to
mm,
shift back into, but it was hard at the beginning because I was having this opportunity to do an OPT in public health. I have been, I had done, at the time I did like three internship in different institutions and clinics. And so I was like, do I change again? Like, what am I? It's a like I never get satisfied with what I'm doing, that I need to change again. And so, and I remember telling Santi, like, you know what? I really enjoy what I see, I'm seeing here. I love what the designers are doing, and they are creating all these programs and courses. And he was like, well, if you like it. But I remember that I was going to graduate, and
yeah.
I had to start looking for an OPT, and I start looking, to get more into the health field when I decided to totally change it. And one thing, because you're talking about strategic planning, and we had to do a lot of planning because, as you know, when you come here as a with a student visa, you have certain, requirements to fulfill. You have to pay attention to deadlines, and you cannot just, just take your time and make decisions. And you need to be strategic because we were here with a student visa. So if I
Yeah.
was going to do my OPT, then I had to enroll in a master's degree,
Yeah.
which was what I did, like enroll in a master's degree in instructional design. But again, it implied like a lot of we had to move to Utah
Yeah.
to so I could start the program. So again, there were a lot of decisions, and I am grateful that my family supported me in that sense. I remember we sit, we sat with the whole family, and we told our kids like, okay, if I'm going to do this. We need to move to Utah. Are you okay with moving? Because they had their friends.
Yeah.
Uh, Anyway, so again, lots of conversations and lots of, trying to align the vision of what we wanted for a family because I suddenly decided to change again what I was going what I was going to do. But it turned out, and I don't want to because maybe this sounds like selfish, but I mean, I knew I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to take these steps into getting into this program and
Yeah.
into this life. But again, we had these conversations as a family. My kids were on board. Santi was on board, of course.
Yeah.
So it demands a lot of planning, and we did this before. I have to say this. We had done this before for Santi. And
Yeah.
he was studying when he was pursuing his professional career,
Uh-huh.
we made lots of changes and we were following him all around. So in a way it was kind of my time at this point. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things I love that you threw out that question of do I change again, which I think is a great question we always have to ask ourselves. Because in order to create the life that you want, you have to be willing to pivot at different times. And sometimes there are things that you can see coming, and other times there are things that you had no clue. Um, and then I think the other thing you said that's really important is you talked about counseling with your family, and I'm going to twist that a little bit. This team everyone has in their life of close people to them. You got to counsel with that team just to get perspective so that you can make a good informed decision about what you want to do. And for both of us, part of that team and the journeys that we have in our lives is, we team up with the Lord, with Jesus Christ. That's such a huge, huge, huge part. There's a lot of decisions. Well, any decision we really can't. It's hard to feel confident in knowing that you are making the right decision unless you've counseled with the Lord. So I've watched you and I've watched Santi and your family do this, and it's amazing. So it's like you guys are on fire, and it's always fun just to see what you guys are doing.
Yeah, yeah, we are. I mean, we try to be we try to be hopeful in that everything is going to be okay. When we need to do, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes you do some steps, you take some steps in the dark in a way because you feel, you prayed about something, you ponder, you felt the confirmation that everything is going to be okay. But then when it actually happens, sometimes it's not so easy from the beginning, from the right uh, at the right time. It's not the right time, or there are so many things and so many components that play into um, making a decision, but then making it work, taking a
Yeah,
decision and making it work. Because again, I mean, we are now, you fast forward, yeah, 7 years, now we are residents, we have everything, we have our jobs, we have our stable life, we just bought a house a couple of months ago. So you see the end product
yeah,
like 7 years after, and you're like, oh yeah, that was. And we have some friends, ask us, how did you do it? Oh, I want to follow that. It's, and we always tell them, yeah, it's not impossible, but it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to make some hard decisions. You're going to cry often. You're going to feel frustrated from time
yeah,
to time. So this whole concept of making the life you want, and I laugh when you say, because I'm truly living the life that I want,
yeah,
but it's not easy. You pay a price. That's what I'm
yeah,
trying to say. It's more comfortable sometimes to just remain and let everything be quiet and just stay in your comfort zone and just let life go on. But if you want to make those changes and step out of your comfort zone and make, progress and stretch your abilities and yourself, it's gonna be painful sometimes,
yeah.
growth pains. You're going to have those.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and a good reminder that growth doesn't come in the comfort zone.
No.
You've got to step out of that comfort zone in order to grow. So there's a couple gaps that you left out there, and I'm going to help fill in some of those gaps just to help tell some other parts of your story. So you talked about leaving Rexburg, you graduated, and then you came down to Utah to go to graduate school. I was working at BYU, Idaho, and then eventually I came down to Rexburg, and then it turns out where I think at that point we both again are in the same department working. You were working on the world language team.
Oh yeah.
I was working on the independent study team or the university independent study team. And then you went and got a job working across the street at the missionary training center.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you're finishing up school, then you came back. Then you ended up being on the same exact team that I was again. And it's hard. I tried so hard to get to be able to say, "Can I work with Adriana again?" But then they said, "Well, if you do, you have to give up the student that you have." And I'm like, "Can I have them both?" But they wouldn't let me. And then that happens, and then you graduate. And
Yeah.
this is the part of the story that I think is just so amazing, and I love that after you graduate, eventually you get a job,
Yeah.
and everyone guess where the job is. It's back in Rexburg, working for BYU Idaho.
Yeah.
And
And I remember the day I had the interview because I know there was this, I think I asked you about if I should apply it or not because I thought like, oh, maybe this is too out of my league. But I know I saw this curriculum designer position open at BYUI, and I love BYUI, of course. I mean, I have part of my heart there. And I thought, oh, should I apply or not? And I think it was, I can't, yeah, I think I talked to you and you said, yeah,
yeah,
go for it. And I did. I applied, and at the beginning, I because of all this, visa issues and all this,
yeah,
I had to do it kind of under the OPT. I don't know if people are familiar with that, but it's
yeah,
like, yeah, when you graduate your program, they allow you to work in the States for a year in the field that you graduated in. So I work as in that condition for a year. And then they decided to hire me as a full-time employee. And I remember the day I went up to Rexburg and had my interview, and I felt so strongly that oh my gosh, I wanted to be there so much. And I saw a couple of familiar faces there. I talked to Scott and other designers that were there, and they remembered me. I couldn't believe
oh
that
yeah,
they remember me. And but I remember on the when I was driving home, I felt the spirit so strong that I was going to get that job. And I remember crying. I started to cry because I felt so overwhelmed because I thought at the beginning I was like, oh, maybe no, maybe it's too complicated, maybe. But then I felt this reassurance. No, 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 this is for you. You're going to get this job. And yeah, and for many, I mean, it's a long story, but for many things happened with paperwork and whatever. And for like almost 3 4 months, I didn't hear anything from them.
mm,
So I was so disappointed because I had felt that I was going
yeah,
to get the job, but for so many months, I didn't hear anything. And then, yeah, I think it was around April that the Cindy, that is my supervisor now, she was sent me an email and she was like, "Okay, we were just talking about you, and when are you coming up to do your paperwork and start working?" I was like, "What? So am I hired?" No, there was a little bit of internal
oh
confusion
man,
with human resources, but it turned out that they thought I was, yeah, I had accepted, and I was like, oh yeah, I go
oh,
tomorrow if
that's
you
so
want me
funny.
there tomorrow. But anyway, so yeah, and I've been working there, and the wonderful thing is that um, this position was, I think, at the moment was for a curriculum designer working on some. on-campus classes,
Hmm.
maybe. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But there was this opportunity to work for Pathway, BYU Pathway for in the Pathway Connect program. And they were like, "Oh yeah, she's a Pathway Connect student. She graduated from the program. Maybe she would be a good fit." And they put me in the role of the Pathway Connect designer. So, and I've been working in that since then. And for me, it was just kind of a full circle. This is
Yeah.
okay. I was a Pathway Connect student. I went into the programs. I did all this. I went to get my master's, and I'm here back helping Pathway Connect students like me getting their first steps into this wonderful journey that is to be an online student. And I did my thesis on, of course, ways to support online students. But so it's kind of a full circle, and I felt this so many times,
Yeah.
even when I'm frustrated at things or whatever. I felt this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
This is the kind of things that I'm supposed to be doing, and the Lord helped me, you
Yeah.
know, pick this path for me, and I'm happy that my family supported it too. But because yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. And I can remember when you had first applied, just telling people, I'm like, she's the one that you've got to hire. She needs to be there to help do those pathway courses. Like she's been there. She's been through everything. She has worked on all these like worked there as a student, took courses as a student, but she gets it like in a way that none of the other designers, myself included, do because we may have lived, you know, internationally for a little bit, but we're all from the United States. There's a perspective that we don't have that you do. So you're such a blessing to that. So it's been fun to see that come full circle
Yeah.
and
And,
everything happen.
I had the amazing experience to go to Africa in May this year.
Hmm.
And I visited with some Pathway Connect students and students enrolled in our degrees at BYUI. And when I hear their stories, I had a short time to make a short presentation,
Yeah.
and I thought, okay, I'm gonna share my journey, not because I consider myself an example of anything, but just because I want to give them I want them to know if I could do it, then they can,
Yeah.
too. Because I never thought that I was going to be able to do this. And never thought that in my 40s I was going to start, a new career path and from in the countries where I come from, when you're over 40, you're like, okay, you're done.
Mm.
If you didn't do anything up to this point, then forget it. Stay at
Yeah.
home and look for something. And I started in my 40s. I started to study. I started to apply for jobs. I created my network in LinkedIn. I don't know, all
Mm.
those
Yeah.
little things. So anyway, I just wanted the only thing that if I can say anything to them is, okay, if you believe you can do it, just go forth and do it because you can. Everybody can.
Yeah. And I think that's actually, I was going to ask another question, but I think that's a great place to end it. I think that's just such good advice is, if you believe that there's something you want to accomplish and you feel good about it and you've, counseled with all the right groups, you can do it. So thank you for just sharing that story and just thank you for being an example of that and being able to do it. And I know you may be like, oh, I don't know if I feel like an example of that, but just because of conversations we've had. But I just want to keep cheering you on and tell you that you really are an example of, if you set your mind to something and you partner with the Lord, you can accomplish anything you think of.
Yeah, for sure. If you're stubborn enough. Of that, I am an example.
No comment at all.
Thank you. Thank you for opening doors,
Yeah.
for being there for me and for a lot of students. Thank you for being for trusting in people's potential, because sometimes we need someone to help us see what we don't see about ourselves. I know I can accomplish things, but it's nice when you have someone else telling you, "Oh yeah, yeah, you, of course you can." And I mean, that's what our Heavenly Father knows about us. So he knows our potential, he knows how much we can grow. And yeah, we need to turn to him so we can see ourselves the way he sees us.
Yeah.
And sometimes people around us help us in that too.
That's a fun part of the job. Well, Adriana, thank you so much for coming on the show today and sharing a little bit of your story and just sharing a story of how through making strategic choices that you're able to kind of create the life that you wanted. So thank you for sharing that with us today.
Thank you so much.
All right, listeners, I will see you on our next episode. Until then.